everyone. My name is Deepak Taide, and today we have Noah Bhai with us, and we are going to have a conversation on an awesome book, Weapons on Mass Instruction by John Taylor Gatto. So Noah Bhai and I, we have been reading this book all together. It's kind of a book club that we did, and now since we have both completed the book, we are going to have a conversation about that and whatever stood out to us and whatever important for the audience. So first of all, thank you so much, Noah Bhai, for joining us.
Well done, Deepak Bhai. It's great to be with you again. And hi to everyone that's watching.
Wow, awesome. And yes, Noah Bhai, so what do you think? So what is the difference between school and education? Does this anything have to do with education? Does the school system?
Yeah, man, what an interesting question, right? So yeah, I love, so just a little bit of context for anyone who's listening. The book Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Taylor Gatto was it was about the school system, and John Taylor Gatto was a teacher for, I think it was 30 years, really accomplished in the school system, and became Teacher of the Year in New York City. So very successful. But at the time that he received that award, suddenly realized, actually, I've spent my whole life working in a school system that's fundamentally broken, and resigned, which was pretty dramatic, and wrote this book. And so, yeah, what's the difference between education? Well, John Taylor Gatto points out that school is softened between, it's around getting people to fit a particular mold, whether it be fitting a certain test score, fitting a certain behavior pattern, fitting a certain like attitude, fitting a certain viewpoint, rather than actually education, which is trying to get people to explore the world around them, to understand things, to actually interpret what's going on, and to grow into their own potential rather than just going along with the flow.
Oh, awesome. So basically, schools teach us like to fit in the mold, right? And
Yeah.
do whatever they told us to do all the time. Just follow instructions. And since you're a homeschooler, you went homeschooling. So what do you think now after reading this book? Like, are you lucky enough to have this homeschooling experience?
Yeah, fascinating. So my experience is that I started primary school up to fourth grade in a school system, and then was homeschooled, which I loved. And then after that, for the last 5 years or so, I've been teaching in a high school. I haven't recently with COVID, but before that, I was teaching in a high school. And so I've kind of seen all different sides of the perspective. And I loved homeschooling. And it was awesome that my parents, I think I've talked in a previous video about my parents prioritized learning how to learn rather than what to learn. And that's something that John Taylor Gatto talks about as well. Once you love learning, you can find skills anywhere. But I think it also has, the book really points out that just because you go to school where there's a pressure to conform doesn't mean that all is lost. Actually, there are so many things that we can do to actually, okay, we do whatever we have to do in school, but in my own time, with my own energy, with my own motivation, I'm going to learn, like I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to become a self-learner, a self-motivated learner. And yeah, he points out it starts with little things like taking risks of traveling to a new area that you haven't been to before, or maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone, or maybe starting something new, like a new project where there's risk involved, because progress never comes without risk, right? Yeah. So what did you take away, Deepak?
So I think, yeah, there are lots of positive points, as you said, that, as you mentioned, that it's not all like we have lost everything. Still, we can be creative, and still we can do our things in our own time. It is our responsibility to teach ourselves. That's a great point. And I think, but on the other hand, I see these all parents, and they are always anxious about their child's education, and they put their children at any school when they are really young, like 3 years old, 4 years old. and then they make that routine that you have to go to school every day, you have to do homework. If the child is doing nothing, just playing around, then parents would come in and then they say, like, what are you doing? You are not supposed to play, you must go and study something, you must go and do your homework. So I think that's not a right attitude, and something should change about this attitude of people, that they put their children really when they are really young, and uh, shouldn't burden their children, like you should do homeworks and all this stuff. I got lucky enough that my parents they didn't care whether I did that homework or not. They just let us free, and as a result, that I think I was I was free a little bit than other children. And so it is not your I would like to tell the parents, these homework things and whatever thing that school teachers tell us, like you have to do this writing stuff, just it is not that important for their careers. Whatever you think, this test scores, your son is going to get like 70%, 80%, A grade, A plus, it's not going to define their abilities, your children's abilities. So please don't pressurize your children to do that.
Yeah, fascinating. I love that so much. And there's actually been a bunch of research that's been done to see that how important play is, not just as a child, but right into adult life. So they found that that the more that you use that sort of free play with no agenda, there's no goal at the end, it actually forms part of our brain and keeps us thinking more adeptly, more with more flexibility. And so it's really important for kids in their developmental stages. And so yeah, totally, I love for kids, like you said, for parents, just to let kids play, let them explore, and let them do that in a way that allows them to determine their own boundaries, what they can and can't do, to figure out themselves. And if you don't do that, it actually has problems for development later on, in terms of just ability to take risks and function well. But more than that, when you get into adult life, and so I know some of the people listening might be in high school or maybe just out of high school, it's still actually really important to play. And when I say play, I'm not necessarily talking about playing a game on a phone or something that maybe is just information input, but it's going on an adventure. Hey, maybe the neighborhood next door, you've never explored a certain park or a certain area, or just take a trip that you've never done. Maybe it's just to the other side of the city or whatever it is. But that sense of free play where there's no win at the end actually keeps people their minds more functioning at a higher level. And they found, actually very interesting, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but I found that there was some research that was done that people who did this kind of free play, whether it's just taking life a little less seriously, or whether it's just doing things for fun, having hobbies for fun where there's no sort of win at the end, are less likely to get dementia in their old age. So really interesting fact.
Oh, and I would like to share this Salman story here. Salman is one of my students. So he went to school
I'm
and he
the
was
legend.
not, yeah, he is. So he did not know how to read the basic stuff, or his reading was poor, his handwriting was probably, oh my god, it was a disaster. But since he was when he was in ninth standard, I went there, I started teaching them, I told them some stories, I made this learning and teaching, try to make that little bit interesting. And he really got interested in reading books, and really then he fell into this reading world, and he started reading. He read maybe more than the books I read. He's reading more than I do. So and sometimes he comes up with some facts that, oh sir, this is like that, like I've read this book and it says like these things. So I've seen that, like if you just if it is not for test scores, and if it is you are doing it willingly, then you can do much better than this,
Right.
then someone is telling you to do that.
Yeah, and something that the book that we've been talking about pulls out is John Taylor Gatto points out that in America up until maybe the 1800s. So in the 1800s, there was an incredible level of innovation that was going on, new inventions, new just all sorts of really incredible development. And the schooling system was totally different to what it is now. The schooling system was much more about sort of more basic skills necessary for life, but then a lot of reading, and including reading classics, things that maybe we don't even read now, like Homer's Iliad, or books that are really dense and classic texts, but have something to teach us and have been passed through the generation for a reason. So yeah, I love that. And it's amazing how much just reading opens your mind to so many things. I love that. As you can see behind you.
Thank you so much. And one point, I think that one, I would say it's not a positive point from this school side. They teach us how to read. Students go, they read, but since as soon as they get their degrees, when they are 22, 23, 21 maybe, so they stop reading completely. They feel that reading is like a burden that you have to do. You are not doing it willingly, and they stop, and then they completely stop this learning part. And then they are reading just posters and banners and maybe Instagram posts, and not more than that.
Yeah.
So what do you think that how should they continue? Like reading is a lifelong thing. And
yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, for me personally, I set a limit on how much I use my phone, because it's addictive. You can get caught up in social media, and found that also just so for me, I'm a Christian, so I read the Bible as the first thing in the day, and as a reading thing, it's really helpful for me. But as well in the evenings, just putting my phone to bed before I go to bed. Okay, I put my phone away, and now when I go to bed, I might read a book, or I might just focus on something totally different. And yeah, love that attitude of focusing on reading, because I think as well, people read when they're doing exams or when they're doing assignments because it's giving them information, but exams aren't the goal. Because I think like a lot of the people that might be listening to this video, they're going through the tension of how much do I have to study, how much do I have to exams. Sure, give your best. I totally encourage you to do that. But when you get out of school, no one asks for your exam scores. Like in my study, so I've done a degree, and I'm working in the field of my degree. Sometimes you have to do a degree level course in order to get into the career you want to do. I totally get that. You would be surprised, however, I think a lot of people would be surprised how many things you can do and learn from without doing a degree, but that's a whole other thing. But in my degree, I did one exam because I studied online, and most of it was just assignments. But the one exam that I did really well, and I was really happy with it. I think I got a 96%. So it was a pretty high score. But no one has ever asked me in my life, like, what was your score on your exam? And I'm kind of like, I put in all that effort to get this really high score, and no one cares. But it was actually really interesting for me to look back and actually look at the effort I put in and go, man, what I learned for myself, not for the exam, but for myself, is something that still stays with me. So
wow, interesting. Really fascinating stuff. And yeah, and most of my students, they are teenagers, but they want to learn something. They just continue for a while, but they then again get to this trap of schooling again. They just give excuses that we have exams and we are planning, and they literally stop this learning, which is really important than more than these exams. So do you have any advice for them, like how how can they just continue that learning also, and maybe this exam thing?
Yeah. So up until maybe 2 years ago, I was a youth pastor, which meant that I worked a lot with young people who were asking the same questions. What am I going to do with my life? Should I study this? Should I study that? What should I do for my exams? And the advice that other than pointing them to talk about the things we've just talked about, something that I found really helpful is if you have 3 concentric circles that overlap, it's called a Venn diagram. This is a really helpful grid for thinking about life. And it's what am I most passionate about? That's one circle. The other one is what could I be the best in the world at? Where are my gifts? Where are my gifts? Where are my skills? Where are the things that I'm just like naturally good at? And third, where are the opportunities? Now, often we just look straight to the opportunities. And I think a lot of people go, is really limited. Engineer, doctor, that's it. Or something like that. But really, leave the opportunities circle to last. What am I passionate about? What is the stuff that gets me really excited? What am I good at? And not just test score good at, but what do I do well? And I can see that I do well if I'm honest with myself. And then look at the opportunities. When you find the combination of all 3, you're going to find yourself in a position in life where you're doing what you love and it doesn't even feel like work. So I love my job, and there's plenty of times where when I get to catch up with people and help them explore the big questions of life and faith and meaning and exploring the Bible, I love that. It doesn't feel like work half the time. And that means that I found a position where my passion, my skills, and the opportunities have collided. Go find that I encourage whoever's listening, go find that for yourselves. And when you've got that, of course you don't have to have it all figured out, but when you've got some sort of aim, it helps keep in perspective what effort you put into your test scores, what effort you put into different areas in life, what balance you give to different things, what weighting. So yeah, encourage people to think through those 3 questions. What am I passionate about? What am I good at? And in fact, not just good at, but could be the best in the world. Because aim high, aim to actually achieve something that could be really groundbreaking. And then where are the opportunities? And don't just look at, oh, there's no jobs in this particular area in my city, or there's no. Find your passions, and often the opportunities will follow.
Wow, Noah bhai, you made really great points. Wow, it's interesting.
Great.
And I think, what about we just continue it? Maybe next week we'll just do the conversation, because it has many ideas and this topic is really vast, really big, huge topic it is. So
I
yes.
feel like Deepak, you and I could keep talking about this forever, so we probably should stop.
It's been really nice talking to you, Noah bhai, and thank you for walking us through all of these things. Thank you for your great advice, great words, and yeah, maybe we'll continue next week.
Sounds good. See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.